My wife wants to quit her job and be a full-time love coach to her ex. He needs emotional healing, she told me over dinner. I said, and I need a wife who isn't cheating in disguise. Her fork clattered against the plate as I showed her the hotel receipts. My name's Raymond Fletcher. Most people just call me Ray. I'm 48 years old, and I live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Been here all my life. Own a small HVAC business I started in my 30s. Not flashy, not big, but it pays the bills, keeps me busy, and gives me something to feel proud of. I got a good truck, a decent house, a couple of neighbors I can stand, and until recently, a wife. Her name's Melinda. We were married for 16 years. No kids, not for lack of trying, mind you. Life just had different plans, I guess. There was a time when we were happy, really happy. She was smart, funny, and kind. A therapist by trade. Helped people untangle their emotional messages for a living. Funny how someone who did that professionally couldn't manage to do it in her own life. It started unraveling sometime last year, but I couldn't put a finger on it right away. Looking back, all the signs were there. It's always obvious in hindsight, right? She stopped laughing at my dumb jokes. Started taking her phone with her everywhere, even the bathroom. Said it was because she needed to stay updated on client schedules. Sure, she stayed late at work more often. Started drinking a different kind of wine. Dressing a little sharper on days she worked from home. And it wasn't just that she was distracted or cold. There was something performative about how normal she was acting. Like she was playing the role of a wife, but had forgotten the lines. Then came that Wednesday night. It was one of those muggy summer evenings. I'd been out on a job fixing a busted rooftop unit in the middle of a goddamn heat wave. Came home smelling like motor oil and sweat. I just wanted to eat, take a cold shower, and collapse in front of the TV. She made salmon, wild rice, and grilled asparagus. It looked like a magazine photo. Too nice for a weeknight. She had candles lit and music on low. I remember thinking, damn, maybe she's trying. Then she sat down, folded her napkin in her lap like we were at a five-star place, and looked at me with this calm, detached expression. Ray, I need to talk to you about something. I put my fork down. I knew that tone. It was her therapist voice. Measured, almost too patient. All right, I said, bracing myself. What's going on? She took a deep breath, like she was about to give a TED talk. I've decided I want to leave my job. I blinked. What? I'm not fulfilled by it anymore. I help people, but I feel like I'm just putting band-aids on bullet wounds. Okay, I said slowly. So what are you thinking? Something else in psychology? Teaching maybe? She shook her head. I want to become a full-time love coach. I stared at her, fork halfway to my mouth. And what now? A love coach, she repeated, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Helping people heal from past relationship trauma, guiding them toward emotional health. Isn't that kind of what you already do? No, she said firmly. This would be more personal, more immersive. The word immersive made my skin crawl. Okay, and who's the lucky first client? I asked. She hesitated, looked at her plate, pushed her asparagus around. Quentin. I froze. Quentin? Your ex Quentin? She nodded, almost proudly. He's been going through a hard time. He reached out a few months ago. A few months. I repeated. And you're telling me this now? I didn't want to upset you until I knew where it was going. Where what was going? The coaching, she said. It's helping him. He's opening up. I stared at her. It felt like I was watching a stranger. The woman I married never talked like this. So let me get this straight, I said. You want to quit your job, your real job, to become a full-time love coach for your ex-boyfriend? She nodded again, like I was being unreasonable for questioning it. He needs emotional healing, Ray. I felt something snap in me then. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't pound the table. I just reached into my back pocket and took out a folded envelope. Slid it across the table to her. What's this? She asked, already looking nervous. Hotel receipts, I said. Her face went pale. 3 weekends. 3 different hotels. All paid in cash. All under his name. Her fork clattered against the plate. I could hear her breath hitch. I can explain. You better do it fast, I said, barely keeping my voice steady. Because unless healing involves room service and king beds, I'm not buying it. She didn't say anything. Didn't deny it. Just sat there, eyes wide, mouth open like she couldn't figure out what version of the truth to feed me. The silence after I laid those papers on the table was loud, like a freight train roaring in my ears. Melinda just sat there, blinking, barely breathing. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Or couldn't. Say something. I finally muttered, the knot in my chest getting tighter by the second. Lie to me. Tell me I'm wrong. She looked at me then, and I saw it. Guilt, shame, maybe even relief. Ray, she said softly, her voice cracking. It's not what you think. I snorted. I couldn't help it. Oh, so you're not sleeping with your ex in a bunch of anonymous hotels while I'm working my ass off in crawl spaces and attics all day? She closed her eyes. It wasn't planned. He reached out after his divorce. He was in a dark place. He needed someone. And you thought you were the second coming of Mother Teresa? He was the first person who made me feel seen in years. That hit me harder than I expected. Seen? Like I was invisible in our own house. You used to hold me when I cried, she whispered. Used to sit and talk with me after work. You used to notice things, Ray. And I also used to believe you were faithful. That shut her up. I stood up, grabbed my plate, and dumped it in the sink. The salmon, which she'd probably spent an hour seasoning just right, slid off like it was nothing. She followed me into the kitchen, barefoot on the tile. It wasn't just sex, she said, standing behind me like that somehow made it better. It was emotional. We connected again. It was messy, yes, but it felt real. You know what else is real? A marriage license. Vows. 16 years. All of it flushed so you could play life coach to a washed-up ex-con. That one landed. She flinched. Quentin's not who he used to be. Neither are you. I left her standing there and went out to the garage, sat on the cooler, and stared at the concrete floor for maybe an hour. I could hear her pacing in the kitchen, muttering to herself. At one point, she tried knocking on the garage door. I didn't answer. The next few days were awkward, doesn't even begin to cover it. She moved into the guest room, said she needed space. I laughed in her face. You needed space months ago. Now you just need somewhere to park your guilt. I didn't talk to her unless I had to. The house felt too small, like every room still smelled like the lie she told. I'd leave early in the morning, come home late. Sometimes I'd just drive around after work, past gas stations and old diners, the kind of places that didn't ask questions. Then my brother Kenny called. He works part-time at the Sheridan on the south end of town. We hadn't talked in a few weeks. Busy lives, you know how it goes. He caught me one night after I'd just finished fixing a busted condenser unit behind a gas station. Hey Ray, random question. Was Melinda in town this past Saturday? Supposedly. Why? Thought I saw her at the hotel. Wasn't sure. Looked like her. She was with some tall dude, goatee, glasses, mid-40s. They were laughing. Real close. I felt sick. You're sure? Didn't want to say anything without checking, man. But yeah, pretty damn sure. That's when I knew it wasn't just a one-time slip or a mistake. It was a full-blown thing. Planned. Repeated. Chosen. I hired a PI the next day. A guy named Ralph Maddox. Ex-cop. Discreet. Not cheap. But worth it. 2 weeks later, Ralph handed me a manila folder with about a dozen glossy photos inside. Melinda and Quentin holding hands at the park. Melinda and Quentin having brunch. Melinda kissing Quentin outside a Motel 6. Melinda adjusting his tie in front of what used to be her counseling center. It was all there. Like a disgusting scrapbook. That night, I laid the photos out on the kitchen counter before she got home. Turned on every damn light in the room. I wanted her to see it all in full color. She walked in, set down her bag, and froze. What is this? She asked, already knowing. Your highlight reel. She reached for one of the photos like maybe she could snatch it away, as if hiding it would undo everything. Ray, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You meant for it to happen. Don't insult me. You shut down, Ray. You've been checked out for years. So your solution was to screw your ex and call it therapy? It was more than that. That's the problem. I slammed my hand on the counter, and she jumped. Not because she was afraid, but because she'd never seen me yell. Not once in 16 years. You didn't come to me. I said, voice low now, throat tight. You didn't tell me you were lonely or hurt or whatever the hell you were feeling. You just went and found someone else to fix it. She didn't say a word. Just stood there with her hands clutched in front of her, like a child who broke something expensive. Do you love him? I finally asked. Silence. Jesus, Melinda. Do you? She nodded. And that was it. That was the final nail. After that, I stopped sleeping at the house. I crashed at Kenny's place for a while. Told him I just needed time to clear my head. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a beer and said, take your time. I started the paperwork the following week. Filed for divorce. Let her have the house. I couldn't imagine living in it anymore. The walls felt tainted, like they were soaked with every lie she told. She didn't fight me on anything. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she just wanted to be free. Either way, the papers came through quickly. But the funny part? Quentin dumped her. A month after she moved out, I got a voicemail from her. She was crying. Said he wasn't who she thought he was. That he was still lying, still seeing another woman, some yoga instructor in Philly. Said she felt used. I didn't call her back. I didn't have to. I didn't call her back. I didn't even save the voicemail. I listened to it once, standing in the parking lot outside Kenny's apartment, then hit delete. Not because I didn't care anymore, because I did. You don't spend 16 years loving someone and just erase them like a whiteboard. But something had shifted. It was like the weight I'd been dragging around for months finally cracked loose and tumbled off a cliff. I felt hollow and weirdly light at the same time. The next morning, I drove to Lake Wallenpaupack just to get away from everything. The water was still misty. I sat on a wooden bench and just breathed for the first time in what felt like years. That's when I knew I didn't want her back. Not in any version of this life. Not even if she got on her knees and begged. The betrayal had changed the terrain. It wasn't just that she slept with someone else. It was who she became to do it. Over the next couple months, The fallout spread in quiet waves. You'd think the worst part of divorce would be the forms, the lawyers, the division of stuff. It's not. It's the conversations, the looks, the explanations. My mother cried when I told her. Not because she didn't see it coming. She'd always had her doubts about Melinda, but because she knew I'd tried. You always did love too quietly, she told me over meatloaf one night. Sometimes women mistake silence for distance. And sometimes, I said, pushing peas around my plate, they mistake attention for affection. She gave me that look only moms can give. The kind that says, I love you, but you're full of crap and I know it. Melinda's parents called once. Her mom, Helen, actually. I didn't pick up the first time. Second time, I answered, just to get it over with. Raymond, she said, her voice tight. I'm not calling to defend her. I just want to know what happened. She cheated, Helen. That's what happened. Long pause on her end. With Quentin. Who else? She told us it wasn't like that. Well, then she's still lying. Or she doesn't know what like that even means anymore. Helen exhaled sharply, like she was angry, but not at me. She said she felt unseen, like the marriage became routine. We bought new curtains and a grill last summer. I didn't realize routine was a crime. I'm sorry, Ray. I know she hurt you. Yeah, I said. Me too. That was the last time we spoke. There was this strange week in late October where everything came to a head. Kenny and I had gone out for wings and beers at Bruce Brothers downtown. He was mid-story about some idiot who tried to hotwire an electric heat pump with jumper cables when I saw her. Melinda, at the bar. She looked smaller. Not physically, just diminished. Like someone who'd come down off a high and realized the ground was a lot farther away than they thought. She saw me and stiffened. I saw her hesitate. Was she going to come over? Stay seated? Pretend not to see me? She chose to walk over. Slowly, like she wasn't sure what kind of reception she'd get. Kenny stopped mid-chew and just watched, lips pursed. Hi, Ray. Melinda. Can we talk? Just for a minute. I didn't really want to, but I stood up anyway. We stepped outside. The air was crisp. Streetlights buzzed overhead. I'm not here to beg, she said quickly. I just wanted to apologize. I raised an eyebrow. Now, I know it's late. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to hear it. Okay, I said, crossing my arms. I'm listening. She took a deep breath. I messed up. I confused nostalgia with love. I thought going back to something broken would help fix what I was missing. And what were you missing? She paused, looked down at her shoes. I think I was missing who I used to be. That stung, even though it wasn't really about me. You could have said that, I muttered. You could have said anything before it got to this point. I didn't know how. I was scared. Scared of what? Of realizing I wasn't happy anymore. Well, now you know. She looked up at me. Her eyes were tired. Red. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I regret it. Every day. I nodded. Not because it made it better, but because I believed her. Then I walked back inside. That conversation should have made me feel something. Anger, closure, maybe even a little relief. But it didn't. It just confirmed what I already knew, that whatever we had was gone. And no amount of tears or regrets could glue it back together. Funny thing was, people started looking at me differently after the divorce. Like I was some kind of tragedy. Old buddies I hadn't seen in years would come up to me at gas stations or hardware stores, clapping me on the back and whispering, "Heard what happened, man. That's rough." I got so tired of hearing that's rough, I stopped going out for a while. Just stayed home, fixed things that didn't need fixing, reorganized the garage 5 times, sorted nails by size, cleaned the grill burners with a toothbrush, rebuilt an old chair I found at a flea market. One night, I ended up watching old home videos. Just little things. Birthdays, vacations, Christmas mornings. I saw Melinda in them, laughing, dancing in pajamas, flicking flour at me in the kitchen. For a second, I remembered why I loved her. Then I remembered who she became. And I turned the TV off. Winter came early that year. One of those hard ones that punches you right in the lungs when you step outside. The kind where the snow's not soft and pretty. It's gray, packed down, and frozen solid by the time you're scraping it off the windshield. I'd just moved into a little rental near Lake Cary, about 45 minutes out of Scranton. Nothing fancy, 2 bedrooms, tiny kitchen, creaky floors. But it had a wood-burning stove and a back deck that faced the water. Even frozen, the lake was quiet. Peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. Most nights, it was just me, a six-pack, and the crackle of firewood. I started sleeping better, breathing easier. But you don't shake 16 years off your back overnight. Some mornings, I still reached for a second mug, forgetting she wasn't there. I kept to myself mostly. Didn't talk to neighbors. Didn't really feel like Ray the guy who just got cheated on was a title I wanted to be introduced with. People in small towns remember things like that. Then one Sunday afternoon, I got a text from Carla, Melinda's cousin. We'd always gotten along. She was the one person in her family who didn't look at me like I was a temporary accessory. Hey Ray, didn't want to bother you, but I'm having a little get-together for Dad's birthday next weekend. He asked if you'd come. He still thinks of you as family. I stared at it for a while. I didn't know what surprised me more, that her uncle still gave a damn about me, or that someone from Melinda's side would willingly invite me anywhere. I texted back, sure, thanks for the invite. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Just threw on a flannel, grabbed a bottle of bourbon as a gift, and drove out to Dalton. Carla's house was warm, loud, full of kids running around and casseroles that smelled like my childhood. Nobody looked at me funny. Nobody brought up the divorce. They just handed me a plate and a drink and asked about work like nothing had changed. About an hour in, I found myself sitting next to Marcia, one of Carla's friends. She had this easy way about her, like she was always on the edge of a laugh. Short, wild curls. Wore boots like she meant business. So you're the infamous Ray, she said, sticking out a hand. That depends on what she told you, I said, shaking it. She said you're handy with tools, know your way around ductwork, and that Melinda was a damn fool. I chuckled. That last part sounds about right. We talked most of the night. About stupid stuff. Road trips gone wrong. High school jobs. The tragedy of soggy fries. I didn't flirt. I wasn't ready for that. But I wasn't looking at the door the whole time either, which was new. When I left, she gave me a quick hug and said, "You seem like someone who got hit by a truck," and kept walking. I didn't know how to take that, but it stuck with me. A few weeks later, I saw Melinda again. Not in a planned way. Just bumped into her at the hardware store in Clark's Green. She was standing in the paint aisle, looking helplessly at a wall of color swatches. I spotted her before she saw me. Thought about turning around. But then she looked up. Her smile was small, cautious. "Ray." "Melinda." We stood there for a second, surrounded by shades of blue and beige and green that all looked the same to me. "Didn't think I'd see you around here," she said. "Didn't plan on it." She held a swatch up to the light. "I'm repainting. Needed a change." "Yeah," I said. "Change'll do that." She looked tired again. Not sad. Just frayed. Like life had started to wear her down at the edges. "I heard about your new place," she said. "By the lake." "Yeah. It's quiet. Peaceful. Sounds nice." I nodded. Picked up a caulking gun off the shelf. Something to hold. Something to do with my hands. "How's Quentin?" I asked casually. Her shoulders sagged. "Gone. Moved to Texas. Said he needed space to recenter." "Whatever that means." "Means he found someone else." She nodded, eyes down. "Yeah." I waited for her to ask me how I was doing. She didn't. Just stared at the paint swatches like they had answers. "You know," she said suddenly. "Sometimes I still wake up thinking I'm home." Back in our bed. I reach over, and there's nothing there. I didn't know what to say to that. So I didn't say anything. "I miss the way you made coffee," she added. "Always got the ratio right." I could never do that. "There's directions on the bag," I said, trying not to sound cold. "Yeah, but you always just knew." We stood in silence. Then she sniffed and smiled tightly. "Well, I should get back. Take care of yourself, Melinda." "You too, Ray." And just like that, she walked away. Later that week, I ran into Kenny again. We were unloading duct board from the back of my truck. "Heard you saw her," he said, tossing a roll of tape into the bed. "Yeah. How was it?" "Weird. Sad. Like talking to a ghost who still has your number." He nodded, chewing on a toothpick. "You still love her?" I didn't answer right away. Let the question hang in the cold air. "I think I still love who she used to be," I said. "But not who she is now." "That's fair." We finished unloading in silence. Winter thawed out slowly, like it was reluctant to leave. The ice on the lake cracked and groaned at night. I started opening the windows during the day, letting the cool breeze sweep through the little place I now called home. It still smelled faintly of wood smoke and old pine, but I liked it that way. Work was steady. I picked up some long-term contracts, HVAC upgrades in older homes, commercial jobs out in the county. I had a routine. Coffee at 6, tools in the truck by 6:30, podcasts on the drive, lunch at whatever diner was closest. Simple. Solid. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't just going through the motions anymore. One night, I got a call from Jackie Lang, a realtor I'd done some repair work for years ago. Said she had a flip project on the east side. Needed plumbing and HVAC redone. I figured, why not? Could use the money. I showed up the next morning to walk through the place with her. That's when I saw the name on the listing sheet. Melinda Harper, life coach. Co-owner. I stared at it for a good 5 seconds before I said anything. "Melinda Harper owns this place?" Jackie looked up from her clipboard. "Yeah, her and some guy she partnered with. Weird couple. He's in Texas now, I think. She's trying to start some kind of emotional wellness center." My jaw clenched, but I forced a calm nod. "You need it done fast?" "Yesterday." "Then I'm your guy." That was my revenge plan, right there. Not a punch. Not a public shaming. Just a quiet, patient game I knew I'd win. I worked the job for 6 weeks. Every nail, every pipe, every screw. I did it like I was building a cathedral. Not because she deserved it, but because I wanted this place to shine. Why? Because I knew exactly how it would end. I watched her visit once or twice. She didn't recognize my truck. Walked through with some business types, pointing at fixtures like she knew what she was doing. She never saw me crouched behind the furnace, smirking. When the job was done, I gave Jackie a list of final repairs, and walked her through the setup. She was thrilled. Said the place was move-in ready. Absolutely perfect. And then I handed her a folder. Inside was every invoice, every receipt, and a formal lien notice. Because Melinda had paid for nothing. Quentin, her ex-lover turned business partner, had promised me payment through his LLC. Turns out he never filed the paperwork. The checks bounced. And legally, the costs fell back on the owners, Melinda included. Jackie's face turned pale as she skimmed the documents. You sure you want to go this route, Ray? Dead sure. She's going to lose the property if she can't pay. I know. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Melinda. Blocked number. I let it ring 3 times, then picked up. Ray, she said, breathless. Why would you do this? Do what? You put a lien on the building. My investors are pulling out. I can't open without that money. Should have picked better partners. You knew it was mine. You waited. You planned this. I leaned back in my chair, smiling to myself. You're right. I did. Why? What did I ever do to deserve this kind of payback? You needed emotional healing, remember? Consider this your cleanse. She was silent. I could hear her breathing hard, trying to come up with something. Anything. Ray, she said finally, I'm broke. I poured everything into this. So did I? For 16 years. Then I hung up. A month later, the property sold at a loss. Someone else bought it. I drove by one afternoon and saw the new signage going up. Greenhaven Wellness, grand opening soon. Different owners. New staff. Melinda's dream was gone. Karma didn't always wear boots and swing a hammer. But sometimes it did. Funny thing was, I didn't even feel triumphant. Not really. I felt free. And that was enough. A year passed. I saw Marsha again at a community volunteer day. We were helping build a shed for the local food pantry. She was wearing overalls and sunglasses and sweating like hell, but still smiling. We spent the whole afternoon hammering, laughing, teasing each other like no time had passed. At the end, she asked if I wanted to grab a beer sometime. Sure, I said. But just one condition. What's that? No life coaching. She laughed. Deal. And that's how I started over. Not by chasing some grand victory, not by winning the breakup, but by standing back, letting life turn the wheel, and knowing I didn't have to burn anything down to see justice done. Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is simply this: watching someone walk away from you thinking they got the better deal, only to realize later the best thing they ever had was the one they lost. And by then, you're already gone.